All right, ladies, let's get to it. This is why the man that you like will not commit to you. Obviously, given the context, we're talking about a guy that you are seeing. Either you've gone on a date, multiple dates, have been dating, maybe you're sleeping together, whatever, and he's not committing to you. These are the 4 reasons in general that you're going to find are underlying why he doesn't actually go with you. You can tell yourself certain things, or he can tell yourself certain things, but it's pretty much going to be one of these 4 reasons. And then I'll be giving you some ways that you can actually fix these problems. So let's jump straight to it. So he's not committing to you. The number one reason probably is just you're not hot enough. Okay. The reason I say this is because contrary to how you want the world to work, or how you think it should work, or how you think it does work, most of the time, if you're hard enough, a lot of guys will not look at these, right? And some of these aren't so important, like if he thinks you're interested or not, because men do play the pursuer role. And if a guy is just put off by your lack of interest, he might just be a pussy, because there should be enough apparent interest in the fact that you're continuing to see him or maybe even sleep with him, right? So some guys can be kind of put off by this, so it's not a huge deal, but it does have some nuance that we will get into here. Not connecting on certain values and long-term goals. That also doesn't play too big of a role. I mean, it plays a role. Don't get me wrong. Like, these things are important, right? But like, for instance, I'll get to later, like me and my wife are pretty different people. Okay. And we differ on a lot of things. And yet we're married, and I wanted to commit to her, even though I had my choice of other smoking hot girls. And was even dating other girls around the time I was dating her. And then I decided to focus on her. And put away other girls. That one girl she even knew about, who she thought she was absolutely stunningly gorgeous, and yet I chose my wife because of a lot of things, right? I'm a little bit different. I have the ability to not make a decision solely on lust. Like, she's gorgeous and sexy, but like, I also looked at her character and her virtue. But the truth is, not a lot of men will put that on the top of their list. I know that because I coach men. That's what I do for a living. So I know who they go after and who they don't, right? Just me being a man is not sufficient to make me good at this, right? Just like a woman doesn't give a guy good dating advice just because she's a girl. It doesn't mean fuck all, right? The fact that I coach men and I have seen the stories of hundreds of men, and I myself studied dating, right? Not just because I'm a man, because I've studied it and had a lot of experience with it from the eye of a coach. I can tell you what actually makes men commit or not. So we're just talking purely from like a practical committing standpoint, right? We were not getting into the nuance of like, is he making a good decision by wanting to commit to you? Because maybe you're not a good decision, which is something that's going to be hard to hear, but we're going to get into stuff like this. So if that already is turning you off, then honey, you need to go to a different channel. So red flags also, a lot of guys can look past them. I know, because I have I have a funny statistic that I tell my other clients. I am 0 and whatever, meaning 0 successes and all failures. Who knows, 15, 20, maybe more, of a guy dating a girl or about to date a girl who I think is not good for him. And I advise him that she is not the right choice, and he will still commit to her. And almost always that I'm aware of, it turns out badly. I can think of one scenario where they're still married, but who knows, right? And I did check up on him a little bit ago, and it seems to be okay. And she definitely had some flags, but they weren't as bad. But most of the other times that I have advised against it, it has turned out badly, okay? Because just because someone's together doesn't mean they're necessarily happy, and there is a lot of nuance there. But again, we're just sticking with the this can be a huge topic of like 1,000 hours of conversation. But my point is, if you're attractive enough, a lot of these things become not so important from a man's point of view. Again, you may not want it to be like this or think it should be like this, but it is, okay? Now, I don't just mean what you were born with, right? Just like with men who I teach who are like, oh, I'm not tall, or I'm not good looking, or, I don't have a big dick, whatever it is that he would wish they could have. Yeah, those things would totally help you. But you can overcome them in a lot of different ways. And so we'll go over how to actually become hotter, even if you are genetically challenged. And you can also improve these things, I'm just putting them in the order of importance, I think. I would even honestly put red flags third and maybe connect on as third. I don't know. They can kind of go back and forth. But the one is honestly if you're just more attractive. That's how most guys are thinking. Most guys are thinking with their dick. But then again, maybe you need to raise your standards and not be with those kind of guys. But if you're going to raise your standards, you have to be worthy of getting guys who are higher value. And the question of whether you are or not, that's another question altogether. Okay, so this is why he's not committing. That's it, right? I don't know how much more I have to explain it. You know, we can go in 1,000 different directions. He just doesn't fucking want you, right? So how do you make him want you? Well, become what he wants. It's what I tell guys, but guys are very resistant to this as well, right? Girls and guys are both fucking, you guys displace or push off responsibility. You know, it's the men, it's the this, it's the that. No, we don't make excuses here on this channel. Either get good or shut the fuck up and go to a different channel that tells you what you want to hear, okay? So if you're not hot enough, what do? Right? So you can't change your genetics, okay? And men are more visual than women, right? You can be attracted to a guy who is maybe not the best looking, like your type, but he has other things and you'll be attracted to him. That happens more women being attracted to men than men being attracted to women. Men are more visual, right? But it's not necessarily only your genetic looks, right? Men don't care too much about height. In fact, we prefer shorter girls on average from what I've seen. Because it makes us feel big and fucking dominant. But if you're tall too, that's not a big problem, right? Your face is what we're going to consider beauty, and then your body is what we're going to consider hotness, okay? We're just going to separate it into those two categories. So you can't change beauty too much, right? You have plastic surgery and all those things and lip injections and blah, 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 blah. I would not go too far with that, okay? I would leave it to just makeup and maybe some very minor lip injections, okay? And if you get older, maybe some fucking Botox. But I would advise messing with chemicals and alterations as little as possible. But I mean, I guess technically makeup is a chemical, right? But you should fucking wear makeup, all right? You should, not to the extent where you're fucking catfishing some dude, okay? If you're getting into the territory of outright deception, which some women just are amazing at makeup, then now we're going too far with it. But like, just look better. I mean, sometimes the simplest makeup is the most attractive. I learned this lesson early on. I remember in high school, I took my girlfriend to prom, and I remember all these girls are putting on all this fucking colored makeup. I'm like, you look better on a Tuesday. I don't know why you girls think that like this shit looks good. It looks goddamn awful, right? Sometimes the simplest makeup is the better. And don't go by what you think good makeup is. Go by what men, because that's 100% authority. Like, what are men attracted to? So go find the women that, like, the kind of men you like are attracted to, right? So then just become what they're into. It's a pretty good, it's a good strategy, right? And see how she does her makeup. Improve your fashion, okay? Like, if you tend to be more of like a sexy kind of girl, but then usually this is the case where you get fucked a lot, or like guys want to fuck you but don't want to commit, you're probably a little bit more on the sexy side. And then if you're more on the elegant side, it's where like men really take you seriously and they see you as a long-term option, but maybe not necessarily, they don't see you sexually. You need to fix whatever you're failing with, right? So if you are maybe too sexy, you need to work on being more elegant. And if you're more elegant, you should maybe work on being a little bit more sexy. Not saying dress like a slut or anything like that, right? But you could kind of go in that direction, right? Don't take anything too far. I'd say on average, you want to err on the side of more elegant. And that's probably what a lot of you are struggling with because you're not getting committed to. But improve where you're lacking. But just learn how to dress better. Like, take the fucking effort. Every time you go out, have makeup on and look good. I have a female client. She's a lesbian, so she goes after women. But I told her, put on fucking makeup. Dress better. And she's told me, like, just the immediate reactions are significant. She can see just immediately other girls and probably guys too, are reacting much better to her because she's presenting herself better, right? Now, do I say this as a guy just wearing a fucking t-shirt and a headband and hasn't styled his hair that well? Well, it's not long enough to really style yet, so it's just getting out of the awkward phase. Yeah, but, I'm not trying to suck some dick here. I'm trying to teach you how to get dick that you want to suck for a long time, consistently, and with a monogamous relationship, okay? So focus on yourself. Last thing, go to the fucking gym, right? You can't change your face, but you can change your fucking body. No excuses. Nope, don't even fucking try, okay? Go to the fucking gym and fucking count your calories, okay? Get a little app, count your calories. You don't need Ozempic or whatever the fuck people are taking, that diabetes medicine that makes you fucking lose weight. You're just lazy and lack discipline. Stop fucking eating so much. Go to the gym. Do weightlifting to actually get some curves if you don't have any, and get like a strong, nice body, right? And get as slim as you possibly can. Not to the level where you miss your fucking period because you're so unhealthy or something like that, right? But get to your max physical peak attractiveness, right? And the younger you are, the least amount of excuses you have, because you have the energy and you have the metabolism, right? But it's even more important if you're older, because your body is starting to fight against you and rage against your beauty, right? So of all ages, if you're younger, start good habits now. And if you're older, honey, you're competing with 19 to 25-year-olds. And if you want to beat them out, you're going to have to, because if you're going to want to go after high-value guys, they're going to be wanting younger models. Just how it works, because like I said, hot enough is the biggest motivator, okay? I met my wife when she was 29 and I was 20. I just turned 28. She's a year and a half older than me, but usually when we're counting, she's 2 years older than me. And I was dating a 19-year-old at the time that I was dating her, and I chose her because of a lot of other things, right? I mean, I think she was just as, at a certain point, there's just different kinds of beauty, like a 10 out of 10 in this kind of look versus 10 out of 10 in this kind of look. They're just different, right? But I chose her over the hot 19-year-old. So once you reach a certain point and looks are even, then the other things start to take more importance, but you should maximize this, okay? And what's funny is my wife, if I look at pictures of her like 5 or 6 years earlier before I met her, she, like at one point she cut her hair short and she didn't know how to dress. I mean, she looked like a fucking 16-year-old boy, like, just because she just didn't know how to present herself. But I could see the beauty beneath it. And then once she like grew out her hair and actually like, wore something normal, like I could see her natural beauty, right? That was apparently obvious. It's just genetics. But the whole presentation wasn't there. And then, once she started to hit maybe like, I saw pick like 26, she started to actually go, hey, I need to present myself as, a sexually available woman. And I was like, wow, you had like a huge glow up. The genetics were there. You just weren't presenting it properly. But to be honest, I have might be like counter to the advice I'm giving, but like I was would I have been attracted to her before? I don't know. I mean, I can see past it because I have a trained eye. I can see like genuine beauty, because a lot of girls are good at this and they can trap guys, right? But then when the makeup wears off and, when they stop caring about themselves, all of a sudden they go from a 10 to a 6, right? So there's a lot of complication here, right? This is just one fucking video. We're just going to try and keep it simple, but I tend to digress and try to give you all the nuance and detail as possible because I want you to have a comprehensive understanding of how this shit works. And if you're not intellectual like that, again, not the channel for you. So, anyways, long story short, doesn't fucking matter what I'm saying. Go to the gym and count your fucking calories, okay? And get in good shape. Get a bit of a donk, right? And get as hot as you possibly can. Improve your fashion and wear makeup, okay? We'll worry about when the makeup washes off later. All right, so personality. So that's the physical stuff. Personality, hot is sexy is also personality, right? Learn how to have a sexy voice. This is what I tell guys, like, it's hard for me to, like, I don't have like a super deep sexy voice by nature. I can kind of get into the mood when I want to do it. Here's like, if I want to try and get a little bit more sexy and make my, what's it called? It's the vocal rasping or whatever. I can kind of start to, get it like that if I want to, and if I'm kind of, dirty talking a girl, it works. It might be cringing on a fucking video because we're not on a date and, trying to seduce each other. But it works because the results speak for themselves. As I tell my clients, the proof is in the pussy, right? So the proof will be in the commitment on this end, or the hard dick, right? Learn how to have a sexy voice. Like, your voice is not something that's yours, right? It changes throughout the day depending on your mood and who you're talking to. So don't act like I'm not being myself. No, you have a lot of selves inside yourself. It's just mostly a figment of your imagination. It can stretch in a certain, to a certain degree depending on your propensities, but like, you have a lot of choices of who you are. Body language. Learn how to have sexy body language that attracts men. Eye contact. Like, learn how to use your eyes to flirt. Like, I've met so many girls who, like, they were beautiful or sexy, but then they took it to the next level because of just the way they knew how to flirt with me and how to, like, tantalize me with their behaviors. Also, learn how to have a good conversation. Like, this was actually one of the main reasons why I was really attracted to my wife when we first went on a date, because I was like, holy shit, you're really beautiful. Because I just briefly met her and I was like, oh yeah, she's really cute. And then we actually, like, sat down and I took a look at her. I was like, wow, you're beautiful. Because she doesn't dress super sexy, right? But again, I have a very trained eye, and I know how to see past the glamour and the glitz, and most guys can't. So you can kind of, like, you can kind of win with a B- with a lot of dudes, honestly. But one of the things that stuck out to me about my wife was her conversational ability. And here's the fucking kicker, and this makes all of you have zero excuses. She's Ukrainian, and on our first date, we were having to use Google Translate 99%. She barely understood a word I was saying, like almost zero English. And we had an amazing conversation because I could tell her intelligence through the Google Translate, because there was certain words translating that, like, native English speakers would have trouble using language like that. Like, it was sophisticated, educated English translated, but that means that she had sophisticated, educated Russian or, Ukrainian. They speak both in Ukraine. And it was such a huge sign of her value. I was like, wow, this is she asked questions. I was talking about, like, religion and philosophy because I studied that and I have a degree in it. And so it's something I'm very interested in. And I was talking to her about, religion and Buddhism and philosophy. And she actually asked very good pinpointed questions that weren't just like, oh yeah, that's so cool, oh my god, that's amazing. It was actually like, oh well, if you said this, doesn't it imply this about how nirvana works and this and that, and how, like, she was actually having a philosophical conversation with me. So learn how to have a good conversation. You learn how to do that by, first, you need a vocabulary. So read some fucking books, not just smut. Read books, not just fourth grade English smut. Oh yeah, let me, 1 second. There we go. Read nonfiction and fiction. Get a, like, good fiction. Okay, like I said, good fiction with good words, right? Not pretentious language. Like, don't go read, like, Thomas Pynchon, and God, he's the worst fucking author I've ever read in my life. Or Ulysses, or just because it's, like, renowned to be, important in history doesn't mean it's good. Like, read something that'll teach you how to have a colorful vocabulary without being pretentious. But also nonfiction. Like, learn how to read very clear, or speak very clear and concise. Sometimes that's the mark of wisdom. It's concision. Concision, if you don't know what that means, it means taking 10 words and saying the same thing in 5, right? Let's see. Just having a lot of conversations, practice it. Like, every time you conversate with someone, review your conversation. Say, how could I have changed that? Should I have talked about this topic more or this topic less? Be self-reflective about every conversation that you get. And that's how I've learned, like, oh, I bored someone with this, or I talked too much about myself there, or I didn't talk about myself enough there. The different contexts with different people are going to call for different strategies of conversation. But the general basis is talk about what people want to talk about, including yourself, right? You should also talk about what you want to talk about, and don't talk about what people don't want to talk about, because then you lose their interest. And then you refine that conversation with clarity of language and also clarity of thought. So be smart, which you're going to get by reading people who are smart. That's how you become hot in your personality. These, like sexy voice, body language, eye contact, facial expressions, that's what I call fundamentals. That's what I teach my guys. Fundamentals, fundamentals, fundamentals. This is the basis of most of your attractiveness. Even though men are more visual, so this is going to have more of an effect on men, whereas for my guys, it has less of an effect, but it's still important. This is actually the king and the queen of attraction. And then this is conversation. I wouldn't call it a fundamental, but this is game. Good conversation is game. Like, learn how to be clever, learn how to, be flirty with what you just said. I mean, I could make a whole fucking course on just this that would cost thousands of dollars, because it would be dozens of hours of explanations of how to be a good conversationalist. Because most people suck dick at being a good conversationalist. Anyways, we're already 20 minutes. God damn. I talk a lot. All right. So, if you've got red flags, this is the second reason why a man will not want to date you. Okay. It's less, like I said, I have a lot of clients who go after girls with red flags because she's just so fucking sexy and seductive. Okay. So it's second, right? But you should do it for two reasons. One, because the higher the value of the man and the more experience, the more he's going to look out for red flags. He's gotten hot pussy before, right? Just you being hot is enough to get your foot in the door, but it's not enough to get the ring on your finger, right? So, or I should turn that into a catchphrase. Being hot will get you on the date and in bed, but it won't get a ring on your finger. I got to work on that. We can come up with a catchphrase. Let me see. Let me put a note somewhere. 1 second. Catchphrase. Hot equals date/sex. Good person equals ring on finger. It's not that simple, but that's just how I'll remember myself. Ring on finger. Lulz. All right. So, red flags. Let's put that here. I'll remind myself later. Yeah, so if you've got red flags, all right, so in a certain, I'll just be honest with you, for the most part, I'm being super honest with you, most of the time I tell guys, if her past doesn't line up, it's not worth the risk. You're literally fucking rolling a dice and doing slots, because most people don't change, okay? But my project here with the women who will watch this channel is that you won't be your typical run-of-the-mill basic bitch, okay? You'll actually be someone who is willing to revolutionize who they are as a woman and as a person, right? Regardless of sex. So I'm hoping to be the one in 1,000 women who says she's going to change and actually does change. So if you have a past, you can't do anything about it, okay? Just having sex with dudes, there's nothing immoral about it. So this is what I tell guys. So I'll give you the other side. Because, and I know it sounds horrible, but it's just literally like, it's backed up by fucking experience. She's not a bad person for having sex with a lot of guys, okay? It's just like having a friend who is not good at saving money and like spending money. You wouldn't make that friend into the CFO, the chief financial officer of your company, not because he's a bad guy, but because that's just not what he's good at, right? So if you meet a chick who's like very promiscuous, she's probably not going to be good on average at being monogamous because of whatever causes her to be promiscuous. But as a secondary addendum, a lot of women who are promiscuous do it for certain reasons. They just love the attention. They're nymphos, but a lot of times, whatever, mommy issues, daddy issues, right? And those forces are very strong. And so even if a girl has a desire and a commitment to be monogamous, those forces in that history is going to play a large role in her behaviors later on. And do I really want a client to, have a bunch of stress of her, having risky behaviors? No, right? I'm not going to advise that to him. I wouldn't be a good coach for that, right? It'd be like telling a drug addict to or former drug addict, like, oh yeah, go hang out with your buddies who are fucking shooting up heroin. It's like, no, I mean, you might be okay, right? But you're in a bad environment, right? So that's what I tell guys. It's like, you're not a bad person for hooking up a lot. It's just that you're going to probably continue your past. At a certain point, there might be like, she might be good for a while, but then, she gets bored 10 years down the road and she looks at her life and she's like in the suburbs with 2 kids and she's like, oh my God, I could be getting, having fun right now and I miss my life. And then, right. Seen it happen. So for you, right, you're my client now. So I'm on your side, but I'm not going to lie to you. Right, I'm on your side, so I'm rooting for you, but I'm also not going to lie to you. But in the fact that I'm on your side is you can't change your past, but you can change your future. So you have to have a willingness to change who you are, and it has to be sincere, right? But if you don't think that being promiscuous is a bad thing, that's fine, and it's not a bad thing. You're not evil for it, right? As long as you're not like lying or cheating, or sleeping with a girl who has or sleeping with a guy, sorry, I'm used to talking to guys, sleeping with a guy who has like a wife or a girlfriend, then you're not doing anything immoral, right? But it's not, most guys are like wired. It's not just like socially programmed from the patriarchy. If you're into those kind of beliefs, please, like, yeah, I mean, you're already gone probably, but no, like we're just wired to not trust it because we have pattern recognition, okay? But you are probably going to have to get more conservative, okay? And I have seen that it has good results. When I did have a former lover of mine, I kind of gave her some advice along the same lines, and she kind of tightened down her behavior, and she said it did have a good effect. But she had some resistance to it, but it did have some good effects on her dating life. So you have to have a sincere commitment to like want to change, and then you're going to have to get your shit together. Okay. And we're not just talking about being promiscuous. That's not the promiscuous. Yeah. What was I saying? Promiscuous. Oh yeah. I was adding a W in there. Get your shit together. It's not just, being slutty. It could be fucking anything, right? Whatever red flag you have. You've cheated. I tell guys that's a 1-strike rule. That was one of the reasons I didn't go after that 19-year-old. I wanted to make her a second girlfriend. But as soon as she told me she had cheated on her previous boyfriend, I was like, nope. And I was doing this all very openly. I was not lying to my now wife. Like I was very clear. I wanted to date multiple women, and I did not hide it even from the beginning. But I'm in a very unique situation. Okay. So, but when that other girl told me she had cheated on a boyfriend, I was like, nope, that was gone. One and done. She also had other behaviors that were kind of, attention seeking and kind of shitty. And I was like, And then she started to get competitive with my wife, and I was like, nope, this is toxic and bad. And so I stopped doing that. My transparency is probably too much, and I've probably lost some more people, but I got to be open. I got to be honest. So I had red flags too. I mean, Jesus Christ. There was a lot of girls who didn't want to date me because of my behaviors. So, I'm not acting like I was a goody two-shoe, and I'm not saying that male promiscuity is superior to female. I think there are flaws to both. But I think they're different, but I think there can be flaws if they're done not right. But anyways, we're going to go too much into a side tangent. So, you got to get your shit together, whatever your red flags are. I mean, they could be you have anxiety. They could be, and again, you could be like, oh, well, people need to accept me, and I have mental issues. Like, I have overcome so much shit in my life, and I know other people can. I don't care what you have, you can overcome it, right? Unless you're literally missing a leg. You can't regrow that, okay, but that's not a red flag, right? These are personality traits. So they are behaviors and habits of your actions, of your words, and of your mind. So anxious, needy, controlling, promiscuous, deceitful, avoidant, jealous, whatever it is, things that are like hardcore blood red flags, you're going to have to fix them and do your absolute best. But this is going to require you to be honest with yourself. How honest can you be with yourself? And if you do have bullshit, because you're not going to be fixed overnight, right? It's not just going to be like, wazoo, I'm better. Some guy on YouTube told me to stop being a cunt, and so I stopped being a cunt, right? But don't hide it. Okay, there's a difference between easing someone into something and then just straight up hiding it, right? Don't just be like, oh, I'm the perfect girl, and then like 3 months in, you switch the flip like a borderline psychopath. Okay, that's what borderlines do. What we're doing is, in the beginning, you do want to show your best sides of yourself. And then, when you feel like acting up, like let's say you get jealous, say, hey, look, I kind of flew off the rails there, or that was kind of rude. I do sometimes get a little bit jealous, but I want to be open and transparent with you that, there's a skill in trauma dumping, okay? Too much too quick is bad. And then too little too late is also bad, right? You're going to have to find a fine-tuned balance. And there is a balance between skill and also just that guy's a piece of shit. Like the same thing with guys and girls, like for my guys. Like your game and your behavior plays a large role in her attraction to you. But there is a certain point where she's just not good for you, right? But most men and most women, they assume that as the first thing. Oh, yeah, they just don't deserve me. I'm a boss bitch, slay girl. Yeah, I deserve better. No, like in a lot of those cases, you're the piece of shit, okay? But there are cases where like you did everything you could to be as, as great as you could. And then, something you did just turned them off. And it's like, yeah, they were the asshole there, right? And in those cases, they did you a favor. Okay, so, yeah. 3, you guys don't connect on values and long-term goals. Not much you can do here. You're not going to change for someone, right? So just improve on number 1, number 2, or 4. And my example is my wife and I are very different. We don't share a lot of political views. We don't share any really religious views, right? I'm a pretty staunch Buddhist, like very hardcore. And she's just Orthodox Christian by tradition, but is not very super like devout or anything. I have a very different life than her. She has a pharmacology degree. And then I'm a dating coach who has a degree in philosophy and religion and literature. And, very different personalities, very different ways of expressing ourselves. She's a little bit more demure and kind of like chill and stoic. And I'm very like outgoing and loud and fiery, as you could tell. But the one thing that we share in common is we're both very transparent in our communication, very honest in our communication. And we both value, being a good person. We both have virtue. So the only real thing that is important thing to share is virtue, right? Just being a good person, right? As for temperament, usually some people go for the similar, some people go for the opposite. I like the girl who's more chill, right? Guys who are more chill maybe like more fiery women, right? So values and / personality. And because they themselves are very low-key, so they want something a little more fiery. Some guys like that, right? And then long-term goals, again, you shouldn't change that, right? If you want kids and he doesn't, nope. If he wants kids and you don't, okay. I think for the most part, girls are going to want kids the vast majority of the time. Sure, there's some exceptions watching it right now who are like, no, I'm for sure don't want kids. But I wouldn't really make that declaration until you are in your 30s. So these things can change, but they have to change of their own accord because you come to the conclusion, not because you want to please a man, okay? So like I said, there's not much you can do about it, but it doesn't really matter that much. If you do these other things well enough, number 3 won't have as big of an issue. And then number 4, he doesn't think you're interested. That's why he's not committing. That's why he doesn't want anything super serious with you. There's been a couple occasions where I didn't commit to a girl or like go more serious with her because she didn't make a move. So my belief, my system is actually that the man pushes for sex and the woman pushes for commitment. And actually, the reason for that is if you watch the first video on my channel, which is, what the fuck is it called? 1 second. You might be watching this years down the road and, I have like 100 videos. Making him wait doesn't guarantee commitment. It's like the foundation of like my system. You should go watch that video. Kind of outlines a lot what I'm going to talk about right now. But basically, any man who's really pushing for commitment is probably desperate. So you don't even really want commitment for him, but you might be desperate too, or you might think that he's great, but he's not that great. But honestly, if you're with a guy that you want so much, you should be the one pushing for commitment. You should actually be like jumping at the bit to try and lock him down without being needy and eager. And how do you make that balance? Well, that's the fucking game, girl. I mean, well, how am I going to chase after him and want a relationship without being needy? Well, by doing exactly that, and that takes skill and a skill of expression and skill of like how you act around him, because either extreme is bad. Not pushing at all, now you're playing games, and you might actually get him not interested, because I've had girls like that, and I could tell that they were fuck girls, right? Fuck boys, fuck girls, same thing. I was like, it kind of felt like she was playing a game with me just to like get me wrapped up in her shit, get me obsessed with her. I could tell when girls were doing shit like that, right? They'd stop texting me all of a sudden, or they wouldn't. I could tell they really liked me, but they were hiding it. I was like, I know you're playing a game, right? And the higher and more observant the guy is, the more he's going to see it. So some girls, that's their mistake, is they come off like they're playing a game. Other girls come off desperate, right? They're just like immediately pushing for commitment. I've had girls do that. Like they started acting like we were together just because I fucked her pussy really good. And it's like, that wasn't part of the conversation, right? And it wasn't like I tricked her and was like, oh yeah, I want something special with you. It's like, no, we just fucked. And then all of a sudden she's getting all fucking, clingy. And it's like, I get it, I'm awesome, but like, don't do that because it turns me off, right? I mean, there's a little bit of me that likes it, right? But then there's part of me that doesn't like it because it's way too clingy. But some of you just don't express yourself, right? There might be a guy who like does like you, but you're not expressing yourself. It doesn't have to start as a like, I want to commit to you on date number 3.5 because I've reached the point of interest. Here's what my wife did, and this I can make a whole video on this. We were dating for a couple months, and we were sleeping together, and that's another thing I have to like try and teach girls, is that making a guy wait doesn't guarantee commitment. As I went over in the first video, like, oh, there's all sorts of bad things that can happen with that, but that's a whole nother bag of worms. But she came or she texted me before she was going to come visit me because we were flying to see each other. I was in Romania, she was in Ukraine, and she sent me a text and she said, hey, by the way, I just wanted to express this because I've been thinking it recently. I have started to grow feelings for you, and I'm really starting to like you. And I wanted to let you know that I'm starting to like emotionally move in that direction. I'm not pushing a decision onto you right now. It's not something you have to decide in this moment, but it is something I wanted to ask about and see if you're also moving in that direction. And if you feel this way about me, if not, let me know. But if you do also, I'd appreciate you let me know, but, we can talk about it more. I'm just kind of putting out feelers right now. That was the general gist of her message. It was a very long and clear message. And I loved it. Like I adored her communication because I myself am a very open and transparent communicator. Now, some of you are going to run into guys who don't like this kind of thing because their immediate thought that this is desperation and loserness. You should not date a guy like that, because even if you do lock him down, let's say you play the game right? You act like a fuck girl and you get him locked down. Congratulations, you have to play that game for the rest of your life. You fucked yourself. Congrats. Like, not worth it, okay? I actually had a girl client who's going after guys, not the lesbian client, a different girl. But she was kind of going after a guy who I was very, very suspicious was a fuckboy, and then we kind of tested him, and he proved himself to be a fuckboy, and I told her as much. And then she expressed herself very clearly, and he didn't even respond to the text. And I was like, yep, he's a fuckboy, move on. But she didn't, of course, right? Because that attracted her more. Because, the whole story is in my first video. But basically, he was 180 from, like, her ex-fiancé, who was, like, super commitment and, like, desperate. And then this guy who didn't give a fuck, and she was so attracted to it. And I was like, oh. I told her not to, but she eventually never got back in another coaching session with me because she was so upset that she lost him. But I was like, that's a good thing because he's bad for you. But she even said, she's like, maybe this is what I want right now. I'm like, okay, go do it. See what happens. Maybe some girls prefer chaotic fun over, you can also have chaotic, wholesome fun. There's a difference. And that's what me and my wife did, but yeah, this shit's messy. There's no clear answer. But generally, you should be the one pushing for commitment. So at some point, you should be the one to tell them you're interested. But how to actually do that? Oh yeah, and also if you're playing the game of like making him wait for sex after you guys get together, he might just push for commitment because he just wants sex. Because I've known that from girls too. They told me they made a guy wait, and then he got sex and disappeared. It's like, well, so much for your game of putting off sex to get commitment. It doesn't work, and if it does work, the guy probably isn't worth it. So anyways, that's why men don't commit to you, and this is how you can fix it. This is the starting point. So pretty much my entire channel will be kind of working with things like these to basically attract the kind of guys that you want and then get them to commit. That's going to be the game plan. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. I have no courses as of right now, no books, no nothing for you to buy. So this is just a labor of love. I guess I'd be open to coaching a girl, but I am pretty expensive. So if you're interested in that, you can. I don't even have an Instagram for this yet. Oh, I'll just put out value, and hopefully it helps some women. And then if it helps enough women, I'll start to take it more seriously as a side gig. If not, oh well, just helping out. Cool. As with the guys, this is how I end my videos. Go fuck yourself. I love you. Goodbye. Hector Castillo.